Silent Assault, released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System and one of many unlicensed releases for the system from famed Schlockmaster's Color Dreams, has often been referred to as a poor man's Contra, what with the run-and-gun style of gameplay, the bare-bones plot of a lone soldier against alien invaders, the lay-on-your-stomach dodge when you press down, and there's even a spread gun power-up. Sorry. Cannot retain, does not compute. No resemblance to be found here with Konami's legendary run-and-gun series. Sorry, I tried. But the Konami code doesn't work here, and despite the similar bare-bones plot, Silent Assault has very little in common with Contra. Silent Assault, for example, only gives you 3 possible directions to shoot: left, right, and straight up. Also, when you start off, you can only have one shot on screen at a time, but this can be fixed with a couple of pickups and broken with a couple of hits. Also, unlike in Contra, your silent assaulting soldier dude can take multiple hits before meeting his demise, and when you do die, you respawn back to either the beginning of the level or an unspecified checkpoint in the level, of which there are 8. Also, unlike in Contra, Silent Assault is simplistic. I'm not just talking about the generally low difficulty level, but rather its level design, which all comprise guiding your soldier to the right, shooting random spawning enemies, collecting the occasional power-up, and avoiding the occasional hazard until you reach the end boss, which also happens to be fairly simplistic in terms of patterns and defeating him. You see, kids, I could talk about the somewhat loose controls, which are functional enough, but feeling a lack of tightness and awkwardness, especially in regards to shooting. I could talk about the jumping and how it's not quite fantastic or reliable because it feels a bit floaty and a bit loose for my tastes. I could talk about the randomly spawning enemies that come out of nowhere, and the fact that outside of cosmetic changes that occur every level, there's really only about 3 or 4 enemy types to contend with throughout the entire game, and I may be generous in that count. I could talk about any of that, but ultimately what I'd rather talk about is Silent Assault's simplicity. There's 8 stages in Silent Assault, and all of them, for better or worse, play exactly the same way. You move from left to right, killing bad guys, picking up icons, potentially avoiding hazards, and eventually fighting a boss. The level layout, with some deviation, is mostly the same, despite looking different on the surface. So if you master one level, you've pretty much mastered them all. As such, Silent Assault can come off as pretty easy to complete once you get a feel for the controls, or even if you don't. Like I said, at times there'll be pickups, whether they be weapon upgrades, health pickups, or icons that grant you invincibility for a short period of time. And if these invincibility icons come one after another, then just run, my friend. Run. And cover your ears because, good lord, that's some annoying ringing noise. Boss battles are simplistic in nature. There's a shooting pattern that you have to memorize, there's a hitbox you can aim for, and it's a really small hitbox apparently because you have to be at the right height to land a shot on this hitbox. Fortunately, the bosses don't take that many hits to die. Really, that's the only true challenge of the bosses in Silent Assault. There is an exception though, the final boss, this Sphinx structure, and its barrage of blue balls covering its territory. It's actually a good challenging fight because you have to avoid the balls because they're instant death and... Oh, wait. Sorry. Never mind, spoke too soon. Oh, by the way, sorry if I spoiled the game for anybody. Your guess is as good as mine as to the significance of this screen. But hey, new music at least. That's a plus. Okay, maybe not. Silent Assault, visually speaking, looks pretty bad. The title screen, while nothing great, is perhaps the nicest looking graphics you're going to get out of this game because the rest of it is not so much. The character designs for your player characters and enemies and bosses are simplistic looking at best and quite subpar at worst, but the worst culprit are the background graphics, which are bland and lacking in any semblance of depth and detail that it becomes a guessing game as to which part of the level is solid and which part is essentially background art. As such, some cases will have it where a seemingly obvious looking pit is actually solid ground you could walk on, but what is seemingly part of the solid parts of the stage is something you could actually fall through. Brilliant. Also, I generally need to question the color choices of the world that Silent Assault is situated in. It looks pretty pinkish in some cases. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I do recall the NES being capable of producing the color red. Sound in Silent Assault is also quite poor. You only have one tune playing in the background, and it's a 30-second ditty of some random notes that sound quite awful. Oh, and the ending tune is not much better. This is one of those games where the mute button is your best friend. Also, sound effects aren't that great, almost non-existent, much like the gameplay. Overall, Silent Assault is, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, a rather subpar game. Unpolished, uninspired, and quite frankly uninteresting. This is a game that you hear a lot about, and you hear people say it's a terrible thing and it's a total ripoff, and then when you actually play it, it's just meh. Sort of underwhelming. It's the unfortunate case of people having an idea for a video game, but no clue on how to execute it properly. Suffice it to say, Silent Assault gets more attention than it actually deserves. Quite a forgettable game actually. Skip it.